All right. Okay, we're back. This is a very exciting video. I'll keep it super short because like there's so much I could talk about here, but I think people will just fall asleep. So like I'll just keep it quick. Now, this is essentially like a Slack assistant that I've built using OpenAI's new Assistants API, which I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you've obviously heard about it. They had their dev day like a week ago now, and they came out with their new Assistants API, and it's super exciting. And along with the API, they came out with their new model of ChatGPT, GPT-4 Turbo, which is not only cheaper in token credits than GPT-4, it's faster and has a much bigger context window. It's more powerful. Like, there's no reason to not use it, essentially. So this is just going to be a really quick rundown of the actual build of this Slack assistant. I'm not going to go into like all the little details about this code. This isn't a Python tutorial by any means. This is just a very high level rundown of what's happening here. So I'll demonstrate the bot first, and then we'll get into the code here. So we'll just run the Python main.py. We got this. We'll make sure the server's running. ngrok, gotta have that going. And then this is just the development server. That's why we're using ngrok. We're not, this isn't actually like in production right now, so it's not out there. We're not gonna publish it anywhere right now. So it's a little annoying because you have to actually do this /Slack/ events. So that is the URL. Slack/events is going to be our endpoint that we're posting to. So that's why we have to include that. So once this is done, we can start using it. And this is fine for testing. So we're in this like Slack workspace just as a little test space. This isn't a real Slack workspace. And we're just going to say, hello, I need help with like writing. And then it's going to query the API, send a request to it, and then in a few seconds here, we should get a response back. The API is like super bogged down right now, and it goes through these really weird wavy periods where it's either extremely fast or extremely slow. It buffers like right in the middle a lot of the time. So you can see I'd be happy to assist you with your writing needs. Could you please provide more information? What are you looking for? And it's just right there. It's very helpful, and it's integrated into Slack, which I think is so exciting and such a huge stepping stone with this API. Now, we've been able to do this for a while now, integrating GPT into external applications. However, that's been using LangChain, some form of connectivity between the apps. With this, they reduce the code base by a lot, and it's so much easier for developers to actually like wrap their heads around this. And also, it's just so much simpler. They have a really nice syntax to use this assistant, and it's just a lot more accessible for people that aren't necessarily like completely technical. You can still figure it out. So then we'll say, well, at her again. You always have to tag her in order to like trigger the response. We'll say like, write me on the benefits of AI in my personal life. And now the assistant isn't hooked up to a lot of other apps yet. This is just kind of a writing tool. You can bounce ideas off of it. It can give you suggestions when it comes to certain things. However, I haven't connected it to like Zapier or Make yet to actually run tasks and run automations from here. Although that will be like V2 of this project that I'll make a video on soon. But right now, it's just very, very interesting. I mean, it gives the same answers that you'd get from GPT-4. It's slightly better than 3.5, although it's like fairly similar. The integration of AI into one's personal life can yield a multitude of benefits that span convenience, efficiency, and enhancement of daily functioning. Well said right there. And it's just very interesting. And like the more business owners I talk to, the more I realize that like our job as agency owners and people that are kind of trying to be thought leaders in the space and lead the charge into this new technology, it's really like 95% of our job to like literally just teach people about this and get them to wrap their heads around the technology and how it can benefit them. I mean, the saying, you don't know if you don't know is very true here, because these business owners, they want to save time. They want to automate processes. They want to increase efficiency within their business and scale their operations. And they don't see how AI can help, whereas to us, it's so obvious. So we have to realize that they're like literally, a 5-year-old, and we have to guide them the whole way and show them. A lot of business owners will tell you, like, say you come to them with a solution for streamlining like some process X, Y, and Z in their business. A lot of them will say that they don't need it because they already have someone to do that or whatever. But you always have to push past that initial objection and actually show them and lead them to like the spring in the desert and show them the way, right? So the integration of this technology into Slack, I think, is kind of eliminating one of those barriers already. Whereas, like, even for some business owners, the act of going to ChatGPT, typing in a prompt, getting an answer, copying and pasting it into their thing, whatever. It's just like, again, it's so simple to us, but it feels like too much work to them. So if their team uses Slack already, just as an example, or any other space, Discord, whatever, anything with an API, whatever they use, if you can integrate it directly into the API, it makes so much more sense. If you can integrate, GPT into whatever application they're using with the API, it just makes so much more sense because they have to click on one less tab up top here. They don't have to come over to here. They don't have to do anything. It's all right here, and they can just seamlessly do this. It's all in one app. So V2 of this video will essentially be, so if you see down here apps, we have Julia right here, which is the writing, like assistant, whatever. So ideally there's like 4 or 5 in here. So if you were like at Mike and he was the Canva guy and he created like a Canva presentation for you, and then there was this pipeline that each of them was an expert in, that's the end goal. And then Slack all of a sudden turns into their productivity, their time management, their task delegation workspace. It just turns into this all-in-one solution thanks to the power of GPT, right? So that's kind of like a bit of the reason. Went on a bit of a tangent there, but that is why I think business owners really do need to have a look at this, and why we have to get creative and start offering certain solutions like this, as I keep saying in my previous, in my last video. So here's the code. I mean, if you have used the API at all, this will look very similar to you. Although we do have some other imports. We have some Slack imports up here that we will need, obviously, to integrate with the API. So we have this checks the OpenAI version of the assistant, make sure it's correct. Not of the assistant, of the package that you have downloaded. So if it is correct, it will print OpenAI version is good. OpenAI version is compatible right here. And after it runs that check, it'll print this, as I said. Then we have our environment variables here. Our Slack tokens are, obviously our API key is up here. I should probably put it down here for better organization, but we have our environment variables so that we can actually connect this and have it all working. Then from here, we initialize the Slack app with this quick line of code right here. And then we initialize the Flask app. Now, Flask is essentially going to be exposing our application to the internet and sending it to ngrok on our local host. So Flask is very important here, as it's kind of hosting our app in this development phase that we're in. And then this is the part that ChatGPT came up with, and it's so simple. This creates a new assistant or loads existing. So I have an existing one here. I'm not going to click on it because it'll show my assistant ID, but that will load it directly in. This function will create an assistant, and it'll make sure that if there isn't one already made, it will make one and save it here. If there is one, it will just load this ID, right? So there's one here. So this loads the existing ID. And then from here, we have a Slack event handler, right? So we have our Slack app, and the app mention is essentially when we tag Julia, and then it triggers this Slack bot user ID here. So it goes, oh, I'm needed. What's the question? Let me respond appropriately. So we have the text, the body is focusing on the event and the text. And then, of course, our mention variable here is set to the Slack bot user ID, right? So this essentially just splits the word Julia from the prompt. It'll split that out and turn it into lowercase, because obviously we don't need that. It's just used for calling her and letting her know that we need help. And then here, clients.beta.threads.message.create, long method line right there. And then threads is the thread ID that we're using, the current message chain, the role of user, and the user input is the content. Now it's in beta right now because it's a new feature. However, when this actually goes into like more of a production environment and becomes more flushed out by OpenAI, then I imagine we'll all be removing this beta method from our chain there. And then this will just run the assistant, essentially. Creates the thread, runs the assistant. And then obviously this part, this is the endpoint that we typed in. This will actually parse our request, send it to Slack in JSON, and it will handle the request. Now, just again, super simple. I went over it very, very fast. Our other file that's helping us here is this functions. We're just importing OS, importing JSON. And then we really just flushed out in here. This is the main body of it, this assistance. You can give it instructions here. This one is for a company called Shift Collaborative that I'm hopefully going to be working with. Now, this was just a test bot to show them. However, this is the instructions for the bot. The GPT-4 model is very important. You always want to use this. It'll save you money and provide better responses. And we're just using Code Interpreter. However, one that you should be using is retrieval, type retrieval as well. So that would literally just look like this, but in quotes, type, and then that would just be type of retrieval. And then from there, this retrieval would pull on a file ID that you would upload, and that file ID would essentially be your knowledge base that would be trained on. So each assistant that you created, if one was based on writing, they'd be trained on a lot of writing data. If one was a graphic designer, it would have hundreds and hundreds, ideally thousands, tens of thousands of design components and ideas and images to pull from, right? So that's our other function there. And it's just very simple. Like, this is the app. Super, super, super simple. And I just really wanted to give you a high level overview of it and show you. And like, cause I was super excited. It took me a second to connect the Slack stuff and make it work. Although their API documentation is like super good. It's very straightforward. But yeah, I don't think I did an amazing job of explaining that, but essentially that's it. That's going to be the start and end of it. So I guess really the moral of this video was just to show you another option, right? And just start to explore the other integrations out there. OpenAI's assistants and their custom GPTs have opened a new door for us as agency owners to kind of explore these new realms of services that we could be offering. And it definitely forced us to get a lot more creative when it comes to manufacturing these solutions and getting them to market. And again, this all just comes from talking to business owners. The more you talk to, the more you're going to get clarification and actual ideas of these pain points that they have and how you can be solving them and implementing AI. Now, that's really it. Again, I'll make the part 2 on this video, and I'm going to be posting this all over the place, LinkedIn, Twitter. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, let me know what other videos and uses for this assistance API you want to see. I'd be happy to make them and get them out there. Okay, take care, guys.